Three, two, one. This is not a CD Logic podcast. This is a Bros, Brews, and Blockbusters. We're just lacking the Brews because it's 10:11 on a work night. But welcome to the show. This Bros, Brews, and Blockbusters is essentially going to be our new segment, our segue from CD Logic podcast, featuring the Bros, just doing movie reviews of all sort. We talked about Lion King last time. We've done Rise of Skywalker in December. This time we're doing the 2019 adaptation of The Joker. Jeremiah's face got real serious right there, right before I said that.
I'm in the zone, man. I'm ready to talk about it.
So a quick little piece of the intro, other than what movie we're doing. We just watched it. DJ's online. DJ, say hello.
Hello.
DJ just watched it as well. He actually bought it from Target hours ago. Quickly watched it, and then Shane, Jeremiah, and I just watched it. Probably finished it half hour ago, whatever. So we are now going to get into the nitty gritty of what could have been one of the best movies, wrapping up the 2010s decade, if you will, and what an excellent performance. Many Oscar nominees. So let's get into it. DJ, start us off with something. I know you took probably a notebook full of notes.
Nah, it was just a page this time.
Oh, good.
So I'll lead off with kind of like a really broad note that I took, and I kind of stole this from another YouTube channel, Wolf Den. But they pointed out, and I kind of noticed it while rewatching it this time, that every single scene in this movie is beautiful. Like, take away the acting, take away the music, take away the script and all that. You could pause the movie at any given point in the entire movie, and it could be the poster for the movie. Like, every single shot is so gorgeously done. The colors, the lighting, the costumes, everything is just so gorgeous. It just puts you right into Gotham, right into the mood of the movie, just by visually looking at it. And I just want to start off with a really broad point like that.
Shane? Jeremiah?
Are we going clockwise?
Whoever wants to go.
Very well. Go ahead, Jeremiah.
I mean, yeah, that's... I think they did everything they could to capture the feel of the movie, including the cinematography. And it's also another thing that that I had noticed and read was, like, literally the Joker or Arthur is, like, literally almost in every single shot of the movie, which is, even for a movie, like, focusing on a specific character, is pretty rare. And, like, I think it does a good job of, like, really getting you inside his psyche, and they do that well with the cinematography too, where whether it's, like, the depressing vibe of, like, the city, or him, like, walking up the steps, or you can just feel like the burden that he feels every single day. But yeah, I think they definitely did an amazing job, like, capturing the atmosphere and the feeling of the movie, for sure. It almost feels like a character in and of itself.
I most definitely agree, and I don't know why, but the second time I watched it, I was certainly more engaged in an analytical perspective, but I often compared it to, as you said, like, almost like living through another character as the lens, maybe not quite 1917-ish, but in a way, in a different, more beautiful way, as I guess DJ said, Wolf Den. I want to make sure the credit's due or given where it's due, but I can agree with you there. It's definitely very, very beautiful. The color, it's the context, the outfits, the makeup. I mean, just, I don't know. It takes your breath away, really, especially for something that, from the trailer, I was stoked about. I remember the day Jeremiah sent it to Shane and I in text. Yep. I know, like, the moments later, DJ and I probably had a phone call about it. We were stoked, but we were also a little nervous, which is what we were literally talking about before we started this show tonight, about the ups and downs roller coaster ride that DC comic films have given us thus far until Joker. So I think that was a great way to start it. DJ was just the beautiful adaptation, from the scenery to the coloring, makeup, the whole 9 yards. Shane, did you have anything to add before we move to the next point?
Yeah, kind of piggybacking off of Jeremiah's point. Everything about the movie is relevant. There's nothing about it that is extra or out of place. all of it plays perfectly like a puzzle piece into developing the image and the feeling, the atmosphere of what it's like to be inside Arthur Fleck's head. And they capture the crazy. I say crazy really blunt, but I'll explain. You know, they give a name to his feelings, you know?
Yeah.
They don't just, you know, because all the other portrayals of the Joker are like, oh, he's crazy, or he fell into a vat and now he's loose in the head.
Right.
But this is like, you actually kind of feel for him, and I think in some aspect, you know, varying degrees, everyone can relate to Arthur in some way.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's being beaten down in your life, whether it's having the truth and no one believing you, whether it's someone misjudging you because of your appearance, you know, whatever it may be, those are just three of the countless, you know, facets of his image. He's relatable to everyone, and that's what makes him such a good villain, because, you know, not every villain, you know, because no one can relate necessarily to the villain that's just evil for evil's sake, but he is someone who really makes you think. And, you know, there's times where you almost catch yourself like thinking maybe I would be in that crowd with him, and you're almost looking at the cops like, whoa, bug off, man, let him go. And you're like, whoa, wait a second. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
he's out of his mind. But it's sad, you know, it's really depressing, and it kind of puts, you know, this is a non-political, you know, anything kind of comment, but it really brings attention to, you know, a topic that isn't really talked a lot about, which is, you know, like male depression, male oppression, which, you know, I don't like throwing that word around because it's very, you know, generally used, but it's, you know, look at suicide rates, look at everything, and it's just something to think about, you know.
Yeah.
And they do a great job of it.
I think there's three things to take away for thus far, and especially what you just said, which also segues into my next talking point. But as we discussed, beautiful adaptation visually in every aspect, setting the mood to make you feel like you're part of the character, but as you said, setting the mood as you're actually him. And I think what's difficult often in film, but they nailed, which is another reason why I think this movie deserved all the Oscar nominations, was it appeared to me it was roughly 1960s Gotham by the judge of like the vehicles, the attire, Live with Murray Franklin, the
Right.
TV itself, like you said. And as four of us, clearly were not born anywhere near the 60s. That in itself is difficult to master. That's why we love the show Stranger Things, which I'm actually wearing my Stranger Things shirt underneath my sweater tonight, coincidentally enough. But if you can have a show or movie nowadays to set you in that time frame, let alone also master setting you or connecting you almost like as a Siamese twin with this
Right.
character, it's spot on.
Yeah.
Spot on. Which
It was almost the perfect amount for it to not be distracting, though. Like, it almost, like, it is set, you see it set in a certain time, but the story itself is also, like, almost seems timeless. Where you don't, like, you don't feel like you're just like, oh, this is a movie, I'm in the 1950s right now.
It doesn't
this
feel
is
like a movie about the
yeah,
60s. Yeah,
it's like, it doesn't feel like the decade is a character, but, like, I don't know, it's like, I think they really
It's just
towed
enough.
that line perfectly.
you almost crave wanting to see more scenes, weirdly enough, of him just in his apartment.
Yeah.
Hanging out with Mama Penny Fleck. I don't know why, but it's adopted
Yeah,
Mother Penny
it's a
Fleck.
vibe.
Spoilers. But before I move on to the key points, or my next point, DJ, did you have anything in addition or rebuttal to that?
No. Go to your next point, Nate.
Okay. So in the first 15, 17 minutes, roughly, I didn't keep an exact count, but I'm willing to throw a dart at the board in terms of the time. But I picked up on 10 key points into how Arthur Fleck, soon-to-be Joker, figuratively and literally takes blows after blows in life. The first point is obviously the opening scene. He's talking to the social worker who he feels never has ever done her job, thinks he's crazy, and which she even reads the quote from his text, "I hope my death makes more sense than life," which she then just continues to add to the memory bank of his craziness. That in itself is really deep, I think, for the whole movie, because it ends and begins in that exact same setting, just in a different location.
Right.
Same characters, as in the, I guess, anti-hero, and I guess, you know what I'm saying, the social worker and him in like this really weird settings, and then it immediately throws you into his crazy life. I feel like it almost had a Quentin Tarantino feel, like that scene could have gone on for 15 minutes is almost what we expected.
Yeah.
But in reality, it was, 2.5 minutes, if that?
Yeah.
And then he does, like, his whole, like, laughing gig, and you're just like, I'm sucked in. So the next 9 points are kind of on a chronological order, which to me, every single time, like Shane and Jeremiah and DJ yourself have all said, it really connects you, but almost in a mental way, to where you almost want to shed a tear for this guy. And this is a totally made up character. He then dresses up as a clown. He gets made fun of. He gets beat up with a sign, kicked to death, and then we see the next scene, or later in the next scene, that he looks like Gotham Smeagol with long hair, as he has bruises all over his spine, poking out of his back. He's getting made fun of by his coworkers and peers, which one of them then gives him a gun, which they clearly know not to give a mental health patient with 7 medications a gun. You later find out he has to take point number 3. You find out that he's having to take care of his sick, delusional mother, who is seeking these made-up letters from Thomas Wayne that she claims to be his father, which he doesn't know just yet. His clown performer boss told him to give the sign back or cut the crap or he's fired, but his boss wouldn't listen to him, that the sign was actually broken and stolen. That's point 5. 6, when he was bathing his delusional mother, which was kind of weird, but props to him for being a good son. His mother literally said, "Don't you have to be funny to be good at comedy?" when he was trying to open up.
Yeah.
That even hit me, and I'm like,
oh yeah,
man, that's probably the weakest of all the 10 points. That's number 6. 7, just the overloading on drugs. You see him obviously grab them out of the bag prior to him bathing his mother, but he takes a couple out of the bag, and you're like, oh gosh, he's serious. He wants more. 8, he's watching Murray Franklin, or lie with Murray Franklin, and as he put himself in that setting, he hugs Murray Franklin on stage, and basically he, in his mind, and partially said, this rough quote, wishes he had a father figure or a figure like Murray Franklin. 9, he drops the gun at the kids, or the little gig at the children's hospital, which was totally accidental. But I think the final and 10th tipping point that made him go to this all-time, I would argue, on a serial killer level, and I truly felt like, wow, this guy can't go any farther, which I almost feel like I couldn't go any farther. Y'all can rebuttal this, but my last point is number 10. He was mocked and bullied by those drunk party boys that was antagonizing the girl with the french fries, mocked him, took his mask, and then beat the ever-living piss out of him, which he then shoots 2, chases down 1, kills a 3rd. And then he's on a run for his life, does his weird taekwondo, karate, therapy, and then boom, it's almost like the second act of the movie starts. But you personally are conflicted because you're hurting for him and don't even want to move on to the act, but he's ready to go. So I want to hear some rebuttal. I know that was a lot, but that's kind of what I really took away from just the first 15 minutes.
I think it's definitely like, there's so many catalysts where it's kind of like he's almost letting him in more and more, where it's like the Joker, you could say, is his true form, but Arthur is just trying to repress him the whole entire time. And at least for me, I feel like the first glimpse of it, like that snap, is that scene with the sign where you literally, I feel like that's one of the most terrifying scenes in the whole movie, where his boss is like telling him how like, oh, those kids didn't steal a sign, and he's just sitting there like having this freaky grin. You just see he's losing it, and he's just like has lost all grip. And then like the scene on the train is kind of like the Joker for the first time kind of making his full presence. But then I feel like in my opinion, I feel like the moment where the Joker is officially like sealed as his new identity is when he finds out about his mom. Like, is when he's opening the binder, because I feel like that was kind of the last straw of him finding the documents about his mother.
And the true history about himself too.
Yeah, about him being adopted, and spoilers, and about his mother allowing. Yeah, I know. His mother allowing him to be abused, and I mean, there's just so much rich detail in this story and they pulled from so many different areas. Where like a lot of times people that have experienced trauma and abuse will like put on a different personality to cope, and and like, you know, a lot of like famous serial killers, like, or famous killers, like, had their own journals that they wrote in, and that's where they all started. And that's something I just really appreciate this movie, where like I feel like it really, you can see they really like did their research, and like it's so much more grounded in a disturbing way, because it's like, yeah, you could definitely feel like this guy could exist and be real.
Oh, most definitely.
He does. I mean,
Well,
if you've ever, like, I mean, for a portion of my education, I went to, and you do the same, went to a homeschool co-op, which is like basically a homeschool private school. And if you've ever met, you know, bless their hearts, the most awkward homeschoolers. We're not all like this, I promise. But there are some who just have there's just this social disconnect. They don't get it. And sometimes they try. They really do try. It makes me, you know, my heart goes out to them. But they just can't get it. It's like when he's talking to the I guess the social worker in the state hospital, and he's trying to get the file, and he's, you know, leaning on the counter, and he's like, yeah, you know, I've got some problems too. It's like he's trying to play it cool, but he actually has a problem he wants to tell, which nobody cares. Like, it's the kind of stuff you don't tell someone,
Right.
but he wants someone to know because he's hurting inside. And it's like, that's the kind of attention-seeking, you know, not on a attention whorish way, but just attention-needing portrayal of that side. So you combine that with, you know, someone who's destitute or homeless, you know, and maybe been exposed to chemicals, whatever. If you've ever been to downtown Richmond, you know, like Cody and I, we work there every day. So, you know, the type of people you see, it's really heartbreaking. It is. But if you combine those two characters, you get Arthur Fleck. So some people, I heard someone say, it was, you know, not to insult them, but it was a really undereducated opinion. They were like, it's just, like, not believable. It's just too much crazy. Like, no one acts like that. I'm like, okay.
Okay, Karen, listen up.
Go to the inner city and then go to a homeschool co-op.
Yeah, maybe not.
You'll see both of those sides of him.
Not in its entirety, but everyone has seen a portion of Arthur and like that type of behavior, and like I think that's what makes it the most disturbing. Like, we see these types of people. Not that all these people are potential killers, but it's just like, you know, I see it as a more like we'll probably discuss more of that down the road. Where like a lot of this movie rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. We're like, oh, it's just so dark, it's so this, it's so that. We're like, yeah, I 100% agree with that, and it's no like feel good movie where
it's because people fear the truth.
Right, but for me, I feel like it's much more of a cautionary tale, and I think it gives people a lot of perspective and starts a lot of good conversations. And like it's almost the opposite of like we talked about in the last review, like the hero's journey of like what happens when you overcome your adversity. And this is showing you like what happens when you give in and you don't overcome and like see what happens. Where like, and it's true, like he literally like he had every single reason to be depressed, where it's like anything that bad that could happen to him happened to him. And you couldn't say like, oh, but the circumstances around him were good, where like Gotham was going to crap and society, like literally everything was horrible, at least in his own mind. And I think like similar to what we said about cinematography, where it's just like you see everything from his perspective. Like these stairs are so high, like oh, the city's a mess, like everyone's so mean, what's wrong with everyone nowadays? And it's just like it's just so perfect, where you're literally inside his brain. And like, is it true that's how it is, or is it just the way he decides to see it?
Right. DJ, I know you're itching to throw your 2 cents in. Let's hear it.
Man. Yeah, dude, that's a fantastic segue point to what I want to talk about. So I'm about to go off on a little bit of a ramble, and I might get a little lost because I'm tired, but I'm gonna try to power through.
That's all right. We just took the last like 7 minutes, so you take this away, dude.
So this movie is amazing because there's so much in it that it leaves you thinking after you walk out. Like, you don't know this, but at the very end of the movie, you find out that everything you've been watching is what Arthur Fleck has been telling this new medical profession, psychiatrist or whatever in the white room at the very end. So you've been watching him tell this story, right? And then that causes you to go back and rethink other things that you saw, such as all the scenes where he's with the girlfriend that turned out to not be real, and you kind of figured that out a little bit earlier, but now you're figuring out that it's him telling this story. I had one thing that I kind of missed when I first watched it, that I caught it this time, is that there's one scene where Arthur is looking at a picture of his mom from when she was younger, and then he flips it over and it says, "I love your smile, TW."
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Thomas Wayne.
Now, when I saw that, I started thinking, because then the mom also talks about how Thomas Wayne faked all of the information about her being delusional and about how he was adopted, and had all that information faked so that she would be considered crazy, and that wouldn't affect his status quo of him being in power, right? And then that picture kind of gives that a little bit of backing, where it's, okay, there might be something there. Why would that picture be there? And why would it say, "I love your smile, TW," for Thomas Wayne on the back of it? And then I started thinking, if that's true, and Arthur is actually Penny's son, and Thomas Wayne is actually his dad, and he went through all that process to kind of get them out of his way so that he can continue to be successful and continue to make money and everything like that, then wouldn't it make sense? Because Penny is diagnosed with delusion, and then that would be passed down to Arthur, and Arthur clearly throughout the movie shows that he is also delusional, and he is an unreliable narrator. Countless times throughout the show, it shows you how he's not really telling a cohesive story. He makes jumps in times, he puts himself in places that he's not actually there, he puts his girl, or the girl, in that scenes where she's not actually there, and I just went off on a huge tangent in my brain of how it could be that she's actually telling the truth, which would completely put a whole different spin on the movie as a whole, like completely.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, it made me feel even worse for Arthur, in a way.
Yeah.
Which is sad to even say, because he's, well, one of a kind. But I mean, that I think you bring up a great point, because come to think of it, I feel like I definitely noticed the TW, and I know exactly what scene you're talking about, but I guess I never really took it in for what it is, especially in that deep of a context. And no, I don't think you're going on a too much of a rant there. Your drowsiness. I think you're true. What's that?
Because okay, if Arthur's telling the story, which he is, right? A key factor to him being the hero is that he has been lied to, he has been misled, and that's why he's able to justify what he does, is because he's been lied, because he's adopted, because he has no family, right? So if he's telling the story and he needs that to be true in order to justify his heroism in his own eyes, why would he tell the story with him looking at that picture that argues the contrary to his own story? Unless that scene is actually a real scene, and that's a real picture. I don't know. It's just it's something in there to make you think.
No, I see what you're saying.
I think it would be so cool. That's what it. I want it to be true so much more that he's Thomas Wayne's son, because think about it, what that would mean for Bruce Wayne, and that would mean that he is half brother with Batman, and that throughout all of the comic book series, there's always been this special connection between the Joker and the Batman. Yeah. The Joker's always telling him, you and I aren't so different. You think how awesome that would be, that this whole time he knows that they're half brothers, and that's why he's attached to him and just loves. He can't bring himself to killing him, but Batman doesn't know this, and he can't kill him either. So I feel that if that were true, that they were half brothers, that would be so cool. That would bring a whole another element to why they have that special connection.
I got
all the time.
comic book boy giddy there for a minute watching you say that.
It made me excited in the theater, but I understand why they it's more of a heartbreak for him to realize that he is adopted in order to set him off down that road, and I totally get why they would choose that, if that is the truth.
Man,
because now he's just a nobody.
Yeah.
No, that's definitely a crazy point. The more I think about it, now I'm just kind of stuck, because I really want that to be true now.
I know.
I really, really want that to be true.
Awesome.
Well done with that point, DJ.
I like that it's open-ended, though.
Yeah.
Most of the best books are like that. The Giver. I mean, it's a classic. It's not a breathtaking story for me personally, but it is open-ended, and it leaves it up to interpretation for you to determine as the reader. is that plausible? Is it not? And
Yeah, this conversation wouldn't happen if it.
If it was.
Everything was definitive.
Yeah. Precisely.
So backtracking a little bit, I brought this up in the middle of the movie as quickly as I could without trying to be distracting when there was no dialogue, just kind of creepy music. But the first interview you actually see with Thomas Wayne is on the news when he is interviewed on his opinion about the quote-unquote clown attack with the death of the three kids from Wall Street, as they say. And Thomas Wayne says that the man who hides behind the mask when carrying out such a deed is a coward.
Huh.
But whereas what you'd think Fleck would, or the person that did it being Fleck, you think you'd be pissed, like, oh, he called me a coward. But in reality, Fleck is like absolutely delighted, to where he does that like weird yoga stretch with his ribs showing, like puffing away on that cigarette. And and has like that giddy like shake, and it's terrifyingly satisfying to watch, only because that's the closest thing he's ever had to happiness. Because exactly, his recognition, free publicity for his stunt, and it makes him even happier because no one else actually knows it's him, of course.
Right.
And then and that's where I said it's very sociopathic, serial killer-esque. The next immediate scene is he's meeting with a social counselor again, which you think the most important piece of the scene is that she's telling him, hey, this program's being shut down, or no more funding, we can't meet anymore. But whereas Arthur is not mad because of that, he's just mad because his social worker counselor that he's been dealing with for all these years isn't listening to him when he said he has lived his whole life feeling unnoticed, direct quote, but it's finally starting to happen.
She's never listened.
And she's never listened, which that's one thing. It's finally starting to happen, is maybe she was starting to actually listen, but now the program's defunded. But the bigger piece is this is immediately after he carried out that attack on the train. And then Thomas Wayne, his quote-unquote maybe father, is giving him that free publicity and recognition, without even realizing it, which I think is insane, and also insane sociopathic-wise. But what's y'all's take on that?
One cool thought. It's pretty ironic that Thomas Wayne would condemn mask-wearing vigilantes as cowardly. Considering most unbecoming of you, Bruce.
No, elaborate. That's awesome. That's a funny point.
But and two random thoughts, they just came to me. I want to say them before they escape me. Two of the things I love about this movie, and they're both pretty, kind of subtle, somewhat, except for the first one. I love how uncomfortably long the scenes are. It, you could kind of tie that into the general point that the whole movie is tailored to making you feel as uncomfortable as he does and unhappy. But that's just a really specific thing that they did that just made it all perfect. Like whenever he's just laughing, right before you first see him in his interaction with the counselor, he's just laughing. It feels like forever. Or, when he's walking and he's staring or whatever, they're all uncomfortably long. And it just makes you as uncomfortable as he does. Anyway, second thing, this is really subtle. Probably, I doubt many people pick up on this. But notice, he has so many reasons to be unhappy. Pretty much every right to be a victim. I would never encourage that anybody take a victim status, that they would, you would take responsibility and, make something of your life. But he has every reason to be a victim. But he gets on Murray's show, and he's just like, everyone's yelling at each other, and it's crazy out there. And you're like, all right, shut up, man. Like, you're a whiny little brat. Nothing, you think he's entitled, you think he's whatever. But he actually has every reason to be distraught. And that's important there, because it shows, that's a perfect reason for the public to respond to him the way that they did. If he had actually had the mental capacity at that point and the sobriety of his saneness, really, I don't know if those two words really go together, then maybe he could have conveyed his experience in a way that would have moved the public more than, the part of it that had already been moved and was wearing Joker masks at this point. But maybe he would have actually won over Murray's sympathy, at least his empathy.
Right.
But he didn't. He was so broken and distraught. And it's the same as, especially when you're a kid and your parent is actually wrong about something and you have that against them and you're trying to get it out and you're just crying and you can't make any sense of your words, so then they just spank you again, And it's, everyone can kind of relate to that, I feel like, in some way.
I can see the personal experience.
Yeah, it's such a subtle... Yeah, true. It's such a subtle thing that, they did with that interaction, but it actually plays a really big part into the whole dynamic of the public and their opinion and their attitude towards him and the movement.
I think that segues into a point, which is what I have about the Joker, in that his philosophy is true and he's right, but how he decides to respond to it is completely different from how Batman would. Where it's like he's constantly trying to show society that it's the same as him, if not worse. But they're the ones wearing the masks, really. And he's the one that, in his mind, he's free.
Yeah.
But he decides to, dabble in the world of violence, and the Batman sees what the Joker sees, but he decides to elicit justice and at least some sort of sense of mercy. But that's why, I'll take a quote from The Dark Knight, even though it's a different movie, but, the Joker is talking to Batman, and he says, the world, you're only as good as the world allows you to be. Is that when the chips are down, these civilized people will eat each other. And it's just he's trying to tell them, look, everybody is everyone's presenting themselves as good-natured, but when push comes to shove, people will tear each other apart.
It's a dog-eat-dog world.
And he's right. But it's and also the point you were making with parents and being the youngest, so many times when you're younger, you might be right in the situation of feeling like there's an injustice, something's not fair, but because you respond in an immature way, you end up being wrong, even though you were right.
Yeah.
Because, it could be that, say Cody punched me in this face, and I start crying, complaining, I'm like, Mom, he did this to me, what the heck, he's so awful, it's not fair, and then, Jamal, you just need to calm down. You're acting like a child right now.
Yep.
It's not so much that what Cody did wasn't wrong.
That's not even the point anymore.
Exactly. And that's kind of how the Joker, I feel like,
That's right.
is, where he's very much is right about everything. But the way he just...
It's a scary valid point.
Yeah.
On many levels.
Super right, though, and I love that you compared him to Batman in that sense, because this whole movie is the persona, not of the Joker, but of accepting failure.
Yeah.
Accepting the failure to take responsibility, to, because literally you have two people between Bruce Wayne and Arthur Fleck, two people who have had very, they've lost everything that really mattered to them.
Yeah.
They feel like nothing. And the difference between them is just that Batman decided, he had a little more resources, but anyway, Batman decided
He's rich.
to take advantage, despite his circumstances, take advantage of what he did have, which was the opportunity to make something of it and to stand for something he believed in. And Arthur chose, like you said, to give in to the pain and essentially give up really on trying to make anything else of it. He actually let go completely. And it just goes to show, the more you find about, success, for instance. This is a big success principle. The only difference between success and failure is a yes or no question. Are you going to do the right thing or are you not? And that's every day. If you go through every day just asking yourself constant yes or no questions, am I going to eat this extra cheeseburger? Do I need this extra cheeseburger? And you just keep asking yourself questions like that. You'll get to success or failure just by on one end of that line right there. And they are the perfect personification of success and failure, really.
Yep.
Of victory and defeat.
DJ?
I think you should stop punching people, Cody, because you're making people identify way too much with the Joker.
I'm sorry, dude. Well, I think we've had a lot. Do you have any final points before we get into the last segment?
Yeah. So real quick, just off that last point, I would love to see a complete readaptation of the Batman and Joker, where has the wealth and all that, and the same things happen to him that happens to Batman, but he takes the opposite turn. Like, I would love to see how that would come up and how that would happen. It's an interesting idea, definitely, to play around with. But going back, one of my final things here is to talk about how, like, we talked about how beautiful the movie is, talked about the kind of mind-twisting story and whatnot. One thing that I remember distinctly walking out of the theater thinking when I first saw it was, for some reason, that movie made gunshots way more scary than any other movie I've ever watched. Like, when I walked out of that movie theater, I could still hear the echoing of the gunshots in that movie, which is weird. It's never like that, even in like a war movie, right? And I couldn't figure out why it felt so like hard to me, such a scary thing. And then rewatching it now, I'm trying to pick up on that a little bit more because I was looking for it. And I actually found a quote from Joaquin Phoenix where he talked about pretty much how this is somebody asked him for like an article, and he talked about how one of their main goals when making this movie was to make death matter. And he specifically talked about how in like the Avengers, they could kill 40,000 people, and it's a happy movie. You don't even notice it. Like the destruction doesn't weigh on you at all, right? Even when they try to make it weigh on you, when Thanos snaps and everybody goes away, it doesn't really weigh on you the way that 3 strangers being shot in a train weighs on you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that like what they do is they made every single death in the movie really mean something. And I think they did that through, like, they made it gritty, they made it dark, they made the sound terrifying. They made, like, the guns are loud in this, maybe they're not, but to me they feel louder. Like, the echo of them is a little bit longer. And it just kind of draws out that, like, real gritty, like, weight to every single murder in this show, and like each one is hard to look at. Even when you know they're happening, they're hard to look at, and it really does play into the overall theme and feel of the movie. And that when you're walking away, you feel like you just watch people get killed because it's so heavy.
Another thing too, like I think that could add why it adds to that is because murder and like violence is often very like random, and like it wasn't in like this movie, like you said, like compared to Marvel, it is completely raw, uncoordinated, random, not fun. You know, like a lot of movies, like like it sounds weird to say enjoy the violence because it's fun and cool, but this in no way, like it's almost gross. And like also you see the Joker, and I noticed this too, where it's like he always second guesses himself, where it's like he like goes to take another shot and he runs out of bullets, or he's just standing there watching, looking at him, and then he decides to shoot him again. And that's what I think is so like, or when he already shoots Murray in the head, and for no reason he decides to shoot him in the chest again, and then he like thought about it, and then he just tossed the gun down because he's just like, he doesn't know what to do. And I think that's just, it shows like human nature, and it's just like, it's very uncomfortable.
It's not Hollywoodized in a
exactly.
way.
It's untouched. Yeah.
Another thing. Go ahead,
I think
DJ.
the big thing about it is, like, just off the cuff here, I feel like in other movies, like, say, specifically like Marvel movies, and this might not be the case across the board, but it feels like whenever there's, like, a specific death, it's a triumph for somebody. It might not be the good guys, it might be the bad guys, but there's a triumph for somebody. Somebody's winning because of that. In this movie, no matter who's dying, it never really feels like the Joker is like winning because of that murder. It's just an act of pure evil, and just it's dumb, and it's like nobody's winning from it. You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and what I was, that's actually perfect. You said that because what I was about to say is, in other movies, you're right. Either the life has no meaning when it's extinguished, or the meaning is for a greater good. So there's a specific reason that the person's being killed, and it is triumphant because you're saving lives, or, you know, there is meaning to it. In these ones, you're right, there's no meaning to the lives, and it's unpredictable. You know that, and I think that's actually why this is two different things here. The death part is one, and the gunshots being scary, I think that's a separate segment of this. I think the gunshots being scary is because it's random. Because in the Marvel movies, for instance, the gun is in the hands of a good guy. Or even in a bad guy, you still know where the bullets are going to be going. With the Joker, that's why the gunshots are heavier, because you don't know what the crap is going to happen. When he pulls that trigger, when someone pulls the trigger, you don't know where that bullet's going to go. And that unpredictability, when we don't know something, that makes us uneasy. And personally, that's what freaked me out about it. Whenever he had the gun, even when he was slinging it around, before he even shot a hole through the wall, you get nervous. It's just like watching. It'd be like if you watched a child pick up a loaded gun with no training or anything. You would be uneasy because you just don't know what's going to happen. And that's more scary than a bad guy having a gun that you might be able to avoid, because you at least know he's going to try to shoot me. I have that much of an advantage.
Yeah. And I think Joaquin Phoenix captured that perfectly about the Joker, is his unpredictability. And that you could tell, like I was saying before, like even in those scenes, you could feel that he didn't know what he was going to do next.
Yeah.
And like there was if you read about the making of the film, they rewrote and did so much improv on set and of what felt good in the moment. And that particular take of him walking out on the Murray show, if you watch behind the scenes, he said he did it 20 different ways each time he walked out there. And I think that's something he captured really well of his character. It's just the randomness and just unpredictability. But yeah, it's.
I think that's a perfect segue to the last segment in closing, as in as him wanting to perfect the randomness, let alone this Joker character that we have spent the last 42 minutes discussing, which I think has been an exceptional, phenomenal time. I loved rewatching it, let alone talking with you guys. But as we also mentioned before the show, and I don't think it's appropriate to really pick who relates to a Joker character the most, like we did with Lion King. We'll save those for the next future movie reviews moving forward. But what we can do for the final segment is, where in the line of all-time great Jokers, where does Joaquin Phoenix fit? Now, I looked up a list already from ranker.com, which I know does a lot of pop culture rankings. I can either tell us now and get out the way, or I can wait till we do our own little judgments. Mine's a little close, but not really.
Well, I think
you go first.
First and foremost, I think, and I've said this before, I think that they all portray different. You have the Joker as this one idea, and all of the best Jokers, movies, cartoons, whatever, all portray a different aspect, amplify one specific aspect of the Joker's character, of his idea. Like the Heath Ledger one is fantastic, but he's fantastic because he takes the idealism of the Joker and amplifies that, and the unpredictability. And the Joaquin Phoenix Joker amplifies the unpredictability, gives a meaning to the mental illness, and amplifies, quote, to be general and blunt, the crazy. The Joker of the Mark Hamill voiced cartoon Joker, fantastic Joker. He amplifies the genius, the intuitive, the life is a party kind of Joker.
Yeah, the fun nature.
Right.
Yeah.
But think the humor side of it.
Yeah.
Right. Humor. Well, life is a joke kind of thing, because nothing he does is funny. It's all still dangerous and crazy.
Yeah.
But to him,
the gags.
Yeah, but to him, it's a joke, and it's those are all perfect interpretations of each of those aspects.
Yeah.
But I think my favorite is still probably, honestly, probably the Mark Hamill Joker. I think he's the most memorable, for sure. I think he's the most memorable, but honestly, I couldn't pick a better one between the two because the two parts that they play are so different. I really don't think, but between the Heath Ledger Joker and the Joaquin Phoenix Joker.
So you think
Mark Hamill
first,
other two,
Heath Ledger, and where's Joaquin Phoenix fall on the list? Third?
No. I said Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix are just a little too different to be able to really compare them equally. They're kind of incomparable. But
so they're tied for second.
As far as a more intense performance, probably Joaquin Phoenix. Even though
Yeah.
Even though Heath Ledger's laugh when he's taking the video before he kills the guy is terrifying.
Yeah.
You know, that's like one part. It's like Joaquin Phoenix's performance is consistently crazy, but that one moment where Heath Ledger does that laugh before he, kills that dude on the camera, that one laugh like made the all of the crazy put into one moment for that interpretation of the Joker, and that was pretty phenomenal.
Jeremiah.
I would say you perfectly put it well, where like each of them captures a perfect essence of the Joker, and also like I could almost even separate it further between what is your interpretation of a good Joker. Like there's also I think there's a difference between a good performance and a good Joker.
True.
Where it's like I think I agree with you. Like Mark Hamill, his Joker I think is the best Joker. Where it's like that animated campy, but he's also very dark, and his laugh is the most powerful laugh there is, and like most sadistic. But like as far as the Joker, but as far as performance and Heath Ledger definitely broke the mold. Like I said, they all just capture different. Like Joaquin Phoenix captured that mental and like Heath Ledger was the first like grounded performance, and then I feel like Joaquin Phoenix even took it another step further with make it even more grounded, where you could feel like someone could be walking down the street from me that could end up like this. But also, in my opinion, I feel like you also have to think Heath Ledger's Joker is already a fully developed Joker from start to finish, where like we're only seeing the beginning of Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, and that's the only thing. I feel like we really got only a taste of his Joker. Because, like, he's only really fully emerged as the Joker at the very end, where I feel like
5 minutes, basically.
I want to see more, because I feel like if we give Joaquin Phoenix another one, that he could easily surpass.
If we better.
He could easily surpass Heath Ledger, in my opinion. Because, like, we just got a little flavor where, like, you see the difference in his physicality and his confidence, and I wish I could have seen that a little bit more, and, like, I liked his approach where like he made the Jokers laugh a lot. And I will bring Jared Leto up in this conversation.
Yuck.
Because a key fundamental thing I totally disagreed with Jared Leto, which I saw him say in an interview. He said the Joker isn't actually like finding what he's laughing at funny. He just uses it as an intimidation tactic, which I think I disagree with completely, because I feel like it's all the more intimidating and scary if the Joker finds these things funny.
Yeah.
He find these sadistic things. Like Joaquin, he actually thought it was funny that he killed those guys on the train. I think that's a lot more scary.
Jared Leto's Joker's just a crackhead.
Exactly. So
Pimp. Yeah.
I think Joaquin Phoenix did a really good job in making his laugh come from a very natural place and not just an instrument. But I wish I could have seen. I really want to see. I really feel like if we see his Joker more fleshed out in another movie, I think he could easily be the top one for sure.
So Shane says Mark Hamill with Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix solely behind. You say Heath Ledger for now, but Joaquin Phoenix to take the helm with the next movie.
Yeah.
Roughly. DJ, what do you think?
All right, so I've got a couple things here. Let me know if I go on a little too long, okay?
Okay.
So
you guys are basically nailed it, so I can only just give you my choices at this point. I don't want him explaining, so go ahead, dude.
So first off, going back to the immediate note right before this. So my personal opinion is that if you were to show any more of the Joaquin Phoenix Joker, like if you were to give him another movie or give him another 20 minutes as the Joker, I think that would actually take away from his Joker being one of the better ones. Because he doesn't have a whole lot, like, once that group of people figure out that he is actually insane, he is not a person that can actually lead people, right? Like, he doesn't have any military backing, doesn't have any real weapons, he doesn't have real brains, he's not really that intelligent, really, So if you put him in a position of actual power with a group of people, I would love to see what it would be. And I'm sure somebody could probably turn it into something amazing. But I think based on the characters that we saw in that movie, if you were to continue right after that, I don't think it would actually be that impressive as compared to a Mark Hamill or a Heath Ledger. Because he's more or less just a mentally unstable person Whereas, and you know his background now, right? Like that's kind of the thing that that's one of the things that gives other Jokers a really big step above him, is that you don't know their backgrounds. Like Heath Ledger, there's the rumors that he could have been a Navy or a SEAL or a military backing. He might have military like history, and that's how he knows explosives and sniper rifle, and all that. And that makes it more terrifying because you don't know what he does know how to do. Right? We know Joaquin Phoenix's Joker doesn't really know how to do anything other than fire a pistol and laugh, right? Like he's literally trying to be a comedian. He doesn't have any actual, plan. And that's part of the character, right? Is that he doesn't have a plan, right? But anyways, that's my opinion on that. But where he ranks, and it's based on that opinion, is I actually put him, if we're including Mark Hamill, 4th on the list.
Whoa. Dang. You don't have Jared Leto above that, do you?
Maybe Jack Nicholson. So who's your 1 to 4 then? Who's your 1 to 4?
Okay, so I'll go 4 to 1. All right, Joaquin Phoenix is 4th. Okay, Jack Nichol's Joker.
Jack Nichols
is 3rd. And then I've got Mark Hamill as 2nd and Heath Ledger as 1st. And my ranking that is because I'm ranking it on who's the best Joker.
Right, not performance.
Not performance. Who's the best Joker? Okay?
Yeah.
And best
I could agree
Joker
with that.
is Heath Ledger because of all of the reasons that we've mentioned already. He's phenomenal. Obviously, Mark Hamill has a little bit of a nudge above everybody else because he's had hours and hours and hours and hours of screen time as the Joker and a lot more story time. Years to be that character and develop it the way he wants it to be and all that. He's phenomenal. And then Jack Nichols's Joker tops Joaquin Phoenix's Joker because in that I personally love that movie just to begin with because I think it's amazing. But like his acting is actually really phenomenal. Like, he is what made that movie good. Right? And if you go back and watch it now, parts of it are definitely dated, right? And acting notes are dated in that movie. So when you watch it, you can definitely still take away a lot of enjoyment from watching his character. And he gives a different kind of, dance to the Joker that nobody else has done since, nobody did it before. It's really unique in its own right, and it's a completely unique take on the Joker that's not anything less than Heath Ledger's Joker.
Well, I guess so. So we got your 4. So Joaquin Phoenix, Jack Nicholson, Mark Hamill, Heath Ledger. Great points. So I think mine, I have no more explanation that I can add to literally any of those. But I've been going back and forth, and Joaquin Phoenix, I'm with Jeremiah as in give me another movie of him simply as the Joker. I think he'll overcome Heath Ledger with The Crown as number 1. But I think as in what we have and not what can be, I think, which there's nothing wrong with y'all's opinions by no means.
Right, yeah.
I think it's a great point, which that's why I'm agreeing with you. But I think for as it stands now, I'm still stuck on Heath Ledger. Joaquin Phoenix and Jack Nicholson are tied and Mark Hamill 3rd only because I only really fully can sit here and tell you 2 big plots and like my experience with the Mark Hamill Joker. I'm not going to discredit him because a little bit I do remember it terrified me as a kid as a cartoon. But I think the reason why Jack Nicholson and Joaquin Phoenix are so neck and neck, and I'm just trying to pick a whole different top 3 here to make it more fun. But Jack Nicholson still to this day kind of really terrifies me because, I mean, as you know, DJ, I really can't stand clowns, let alone ones that are simple, because he's supposed to just be like this gangster. And I think that's why it's so creepy to me, especially because, as you say, it's a litlittle dated. What was it, early 80s, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah.
And it's kind of
scary.
It is. They are.
It is.
They are. It's because they're so simplistic.
Yeah.
They almost didn't have to try. It's almost like a horror movie with no music is scarier than a movie with music, like the Paranormal Activities.
Right.
those are
gosh.
scarier because they have no music, and you almost have to imagine what would be that sound. For me and Jack Nicholson compared to Joaquin Phoenix is Jack Nicholson. Exactly. Jack Nicholson is like the simplistic, obviously makeup, lipstick, but it's like that weird smile and like his little head tilt till he does and like moves his head.
Right, yeah.
To me, that
His
is,
wide-eyed,
I see that
crazy
as
look,
an
yeah.
actual party clown, what Joaquin Phoenix was acting as. Jack Nicholson is that. And I hate that kind of clown.
Yeah.
Let alone human being.
He's definitely the scariest Joker, I think.
Yes. Because of his simplicity. Like Heath Ledger almost is relatable to what I think it was like I think it was you, Shane, that was saying earlier, like the bad guy. We know what the bad guy is going to quote unquote do. Bad guy acts like shooty shooty bang bang, watch out. Heath Ledger, we know that's what he's going to do. Jack Nicholson's unpredictable because he's this creepy, playful circus clown in a way, but with a very evil. Exactly, yeah. He kills one of his own just to prove a point because that's how the mobsters do. So I think that's what the kind of why to me he's gonna be. But
it's interesting how they all are like feel dangerous in a different way, in a completely different way. They're scary in all completely different ways.
Yes, but I think this is definitely something that we could debate and further.
Yeah.
And we should have maybe another video down the road. By all means, maybe we should watch like another former Batman or like older Batman.
Yeah, I could keep talking
because I think we can definitely go on about this, and I'm loving this. But I don't want. We're almost to an hour. Don't want to go too much farther.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting late. We had an absolute blast with just rewatching and chatting, but I think we had some great points. So, all in all, I thought it was another good show. This is the first episode of the Bros, Brews, and Blockbusters. Tongue twister, almost didn't say it right. Next time we will definitely have the Brews, just a little late. But DJ, thoughts? Any final words?
I'm ready for bed, mate.
Right there with you, dude. Gotta be. I know you get up just as early, or I'm getting up just as early as you tomorrow. So not even 6.5 hours is coming up close. But other than that, it's all worth it. I had an absolute blast watching the movie again in this show, and I can't wait for many, many, many future episodes. We'll have to figure out. Off the top of your head, DJ, what's the next movie you want to do? I know we've been talking about it for years. What's the next movie? If you can spit one out.
Whatever somebody comments down below.
Titanic.
So Shane says Titanic, and you say whatever someone comments down below. Someone please give a better idea than Titanic.
That should be your motivation. If you don't come up with anything, then we gotta watch Titanic.
Oh gosh.
I've never even seen it, so.
DJ, don't make a fake YouTube account and comment something.
Titanic.
But other than that, DJ, you take it away.
Bye.